Out. So this is week 2 of R795 Dissertation Proposal Prep. And we're splitting this week into 2 different sections because this is really 2 different sections. I'm going to have a face-to-face group meeting on Friday afternoon around 1:15 with a short trip over to Mother Bear's place for pizza after. Anyone who's an ED student who lives in Bloomington, like Tiana, is welcome to join. We'll probably get there after 3:15 or so. She's just text me maybe at 812-322-KURT, 812-322-2878. And I'll tell you where we're at. And anyone's friends and family, so but as long as you pay the bill for everybody. No, I'm just kidding. So, I like taking the class to Mother Bears. In the past, it was on Monday nights. I taught my other class from 7 to 9:45 on Monday nights forever. It was emerging learning technologies. And regular Bears Place would have comedy club on Monday nights, stand-up comedy, longest running stand-up comedy show in North America, independent comedy show, I should say. And that's closed down. The show closed down maybe 5-10 years. They don't do the stand-up on Monday nights. They do it once a week maybe now, but not on the Monday nights. So we used to go to Mother Bears and Bears Place, have a great time. I once in a while taught on a Friday, and the course, actually the face-to-face course, is scheduled for Friday 1:15 to like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, at 1:15 to almost 4 o'clock. So I'm taking advantage of that. Before I get started, do I have any questions from Mika or Tiana?
Not yet. I'm happy to be here. Great seeing you. I haven't seen you since last spring.
How much older do I look?
You look 10 years younger.
You got an A+ too. All right. So yeah, since last spring. So today we have a lot of guests, including Angie Luckman, who's coming in last, but we have Mengwan Zhao from Indianapolis, IUPUI, who's got her doctorate last summer. Angie got hers a few years ago. We also have Therese coming in from Grenada. She got hers a year and a half ago. And we have Sunmei Seoul coming in from Stanford. She got hers last summer as well. So a lot of recently minted people to give advice on quals, to give advice on dissertation proposal writing and defense. And that's why the face-to-face PhD students would probably be interested in some things that they have to say, but most things they're going to be not interested in because they passed their quals already or don't have to take the same quals as you all do. So what I thought I'd get through is the first couple parts of my every week I'll try and give some writing tips, or maybe every other week, in particular next week, because we don't have a guest next week except me at this point. Ana Paula Carrera from Ohio State, an alum, is switched with me. The week that was listed as me is now her. I think it's not official, and then I'm taking over next week. So she'll be a guest a few weeks down the road. Due to timing, this month was hectic for her. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen and see if I can find what I want to find on my screen. And there we go. And again, I'm going to go back to the very beginning here and just say, oh, Mena, who's in the middle there, Mena Ju's also an alum, and Feng Ru Shu is also an alum. They helped me with this talk to some degree. Mena will be a guest in a few weeks in here. And so I went through last time a number of ways on how to get a writing sample, how to get a research sample, whether it's government data or it's computer log data or social media data, or it's going out and actually collecting the data, or contacting fellow researchers about how they've gotten their data to see if you could tap into that mine, the gold mine of research data. Oftentimes we are frustrated on and on and on until we make one contact, and that contact becomes someone who might become a lifelong friend as a result of helping with their dissertation data. You can post things in Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and WeChat and Kakao Talk and Line and all these social media tools that are out there. You can collect emails, as I said, and I've done that a couple of times in my research endeavors. Many times, in fact, I'm just scraping data off the web and so forth. I've also asked for permission. And again, there's a website I pointed out last time. It's called Prolific. My doc student Shishi Lee and I are using Prolific to pay for names to take surveys and do interviews and so forth. But sometimes you can contact a foundation or a institute or just a nonprofit project that might be out there. And my former student, William Kanye, studied makerspaces across America, just contacting all the Makerspace Initiative directors and was able to get his dissertation data that way. So part 2 of this writing tips has to do with collaborative writing advice. I'm going to go through part 2 quickly because I want to get to part 3 tonight, actually. And so, yeah, here's Snoopy saying, and so his life ended. There, I did it. It took me 2 years to write this biography. It's great. It's a good thing because good thing I'm finished because I've forgotten who I was writing about. Now that happens sometimes when I come back to my computer and think, what the heck am I writing this paper on? Or, what's the intended audience and where is this going to go? Sometimes you get in the throes of things, just writing, you totally slip up in terms of social cognition, audience awareness and whatnot. So it also is important not just think about your audience, but to think about who you're going to collaborate with when you're doing a research project. Who can you tap into that might help you in a small way, in a minor way, in a soft way, that you may just put them in the acknowledgments? And who might help you in a more major way that they become a co-writer or co-editor of a special issue of a journal or a co-writer of an article that you're writing or a book or whatever. Maina Ju and many of my colleagues are in the pictures there that I've worked with over the past decade. On the right-hand side, on the bottom right, is Tom Reynolds, who I met in grad school. We co-dissertated together. We developed a computer prompting system in writing and a keystroke mapping system together. And we were planning to do a book on it. Our dissertation was going to be a book, and we never did. We finally have done 3 books on MOOC sort of education decades later together. The woman on the far right above him is Elaine Coe, who did the Adding Tech Variety book with me, the free book on how to teach online that's just come out with a new version. On the far left is Tom Reeves at the bottom there, who's done several books, including the MOOCs books with me. And above him is Dr. Ka Zhang from Wayne State, who's done a book on me and my R2D2 model and a couple other things. I did this particular talk with Maina Ju. Some of these are Maina's partners, some of these are my partners and writing partners, but I'm going to give you some tips on how to form research collaborations. And these tips are not necessarily all generalizable because your situation may be different than my situation, or that Mika's situation might be different from Tiana's or from Ed's. We all might be, and different writing expectations, different goals, different experiences, different backgrounds, but these are some tips. First, form an agreement about the publication order. This is really important, yet it could change. So, we might have early on an idea that we're going to get 1 paper out of this project. And after Ed starts analyzing the data, we start coming up with 2 papers or 3 papers. Well, we have to rethink the publication order of each of those papers that are going to come as a result of it. Your dissertation, Tiana might get Ed to help her with her as a second coder or a second rater, and might promise Ed, well, the first publication, you're going to be a second author of it, and someone else might be a third author. And then later on, there happens to be a couple extra papers. Well, those agreements are fluid, and some things change as a result of finding additional data, finding different outlets. You might get invited to publish your data. Tiana's in Letty Hall. There might be someone doing a special issue of a journal, walk in the hallways one day and say, hey, would you like to publish in here? That happens a lot, believe it or not. So also agree on the writing tools themselves. Typically, I like using Word with annotations. Most of my colleagues these days are tending to like Google Documents, which I used to hate a lot, but it's okay. Google Documents, I get frustrated knowing where I am and who's been working on it most recently, whereas a Word document, I know I'm the last one to have it. We time, date, stamp everything. I'm done with it. I sent it to Mika. She works on it. She sends it to Tiana. We have a little better control over version control, but you also could have worse control using that approach if you're not careful and consistent about marking the file structures and so forth. But if you're using certain resources, if you're using certain tools like endnotes, be in agreement as to how you're going to write these papers up. And time date stamp everything. So I like using a time date stamping January 16th at 2 p.m. And then when I work on it again at January 16th at 4 p.m., January 16th at 6 p.m. And then I know which is the most recent one that's being worked on, and we can share things that way. And everyone is aware of which version is the most current one and so forth. But again, there might be different filing structures that you utilize or naming structures and so forth. And then as a leader of a team, and even as a participant within the team, when you see an opportunity come up, share those with the team as possibilities. You could quickly discount them, but share them on the front end before that opportunity goes to someone else. And in these days, publishing in special issues, including tonight, we have a reviewer, we had feedback from a journal saying we're sort of almost accepted. Here's the reviewer feedback and so forth on a special issue. These things happen all the time too. And so we're telling everyone on the team, here's where we're at, here's what's got to be changed, here's going to be the first one that's going to revise, who's the second one, who's the third one. And then plan your schedules and timelines, be aware of deadlines. My team, one of my AI research teams, focusing on 4 papers. We got 2 done, 2 out. 2 are in process. We heard on 1 tonight. We know when all the deadlines are. We know what the timelines are, but we forget. And so from time to time, we remind each other of the deadlines and so forth to get them on the radar. Now, on my homepage, and I could almost show you this. I wonder if you'd be interested in seeing it. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see if I can find it on my homepage. That's not going to show my homepage. Let's hang on. Let me see if I can do it this way. Okay, I'm just closing out of some stuff so I can show you my work, what I call work files. Okay, in 2023. Okay, December. I'll do. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it on. I'm on my laptop right now. It doesn't have my file structure the way I want, but I can explain what I do anyhow. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Now I've got to find where I was. Here we go. So on my desktop, what I do is I have all 2023 projects that I've worked on. And I create a folder of all the papers I'm revising or working on. So I don't have to go down a lot of substructures. It's right on my desktop. So I actually worked on 42 different research papers last year in 2023. That's a lot. Mostly I helped with 16 papers I got in review. I had 14 published research articles and then another 6 miscellaneous and 6 are in press. So I had to keep track of all those things and who I'm working with. So I have everyone named and every time I make a revision, I'm indexing it according to the month, according to the day, and so forth. And then you want to prioritize projects, and maybe you prioritize with the team members that you have. One person might be in charge of the lit review, another person might be in charge of the limitations, another person in charge of future directions, and so forth. And then, this, of course, the more senior people should be sharing and mentoring the new people as they come in, and what the expectations are, and what the norms are, and how often you meet, and when you might be meeting as a research team I'm talking about. Now, if you're working on a dissertation, a lot of that's going to be lonely and on your own. You won't be necessarily working with a team, but you can collaborate with your fellow students in sharing resources and sharing where you're at and commiserating with each other about how far it's come along and how slow it might be seeming at the time. But then you also want to celebrate success, whether it's your own personal success. You might pass your dissertation defense, your qualifying exams, your proposal defense, but everything along the way, even small successes, should be celebrated to some degree. Now, you don't want to over-celebrate, but you don't definitely want to under-celebrate. So however that celebration might happen, it might be just taking your kids to a movie. It might be a celebration there. It might be go out and buy yourself a new, clothes or something, or go to Dairy Queen like I used to do a lot. Something to celebrate in some way, shape, or form. It might be just meditating out in the back of your yard somewhere that, in a local park. That might be a celebration itself. Might be having a tea with a friend, go to Panera, and so forth. And then, if you have multiple things, if Tiana's publishing 3 things from one project, you might change the publishing order based on the different projects. So I have a couple of students who are really ambitious, and we're even this week, we're rethinking who's going to be 3rd author, who might be 4th author, and so forth. It doesn't have to be the same order every time, so as to make it fair for team members, especially if they're doing a lot of work. And even those who are doing a lot less work, if you've got 4 papers coming out of it, maybe on one of the papers you move them up, but you talk to everybody and see where you're at. And then some people, I have a couple people no longer on my team, but I think they still should be acknowledged for the work that they produced and provided for the whole team. So there's an acknowledgement section that goes in a paper that you can write a little note and say, thank you, Mika Billings-Dupwell, for her invaluable work in the literature review section, or whatever. Or, you don't even have to be that specific. You just thank the person or thank the nonprofit. Let's say that you got money from your school district or your university, you can thank them, or funding from the Spencer Foundation or some MacArthur, you thank them. So acknowledging others, so, especially if they've done work to help in that research project, but not necessarily enough to get them on the paper, or they maybe don't want to be on that paper. Always bring treats, and treats can be healthy food, can be gift cards, could be coupons from Mother Bear's Pizza, whatever it is, to research team meetings. Bring something to acknowledge that everyone showed up there face to face, because these days everyone wants virtual on everything. So if you have virtual things, you can still acknowledge and have some kind of virtual goodies for people, or just a thank you for coming to the meeting. Post accomplishments of the team's work. If you've published, post it to Twitter, post it to Facebook, so that you can get some feedback from others, especially once the article's out. If you can share a link, oftentimes the publisher will allow 50 free copies or 100 free copies of the first 100 people to download. You can post a link in Facebook, and the first 50 friends of yours can download it for free. And then it might cost money after the first 50 have downloaded it. The one we just had accepted for publication, or it's about ready to be accepted, they embargo the work for a year. You have to pay for it for first year, but after a year they make it free. It's IEEE Transactions and Learning Technologies, and that's one way in which some places are going. So some embargo it or make it like that. Others will make it free right away. And then there's this notion of, I think, gold level, and green might be the other level, where you pay a fee. Your research grant might pay a fee to make the article open access, or your university like Indiana or Purdue pays a fee to enable your article to be open access. So as a student here, you might get published in a journal that restricts the article, and you have to pay for it. Now, as an Indiana University student, through our library, you have access to most things for free. But Indiana librarians and so forth have an extra pot of money where they can pay some extra fee, and Purdue has this more than we do, I think, where they pay the publisher a fee, $1,000, $2,000, to make your article open access right away from day one. So the laws there are tricky, the norms are tricky, and so forth. A little collaboration advice, you want to build your networks. One of the most important things as a scholar, even if you're only going to publish a few things throughout your life, just maintaining your professional networks is extremely important. It can lead anywhere. You don't want to use people. On the other hand, you don't want your relationships to all be instrumental. Those aren't necessarily true friends. As listening to a book today, talked about having real friends and having deal friends, friends that will help you make a deal. That's not a true friend relationship, but you want to build both those professional relationships as well as personal ones. You want to be respectful of people's time, people's norms. Some people like working late like I do. Some people get up early and so forth. Some have different cultural norms in terms of writing and editing and working with others and so forth. You also want to be careful about the guidelines that the journal puts out that, might be dictating how long the paper is going to be. It might indicate how long it will take to get published. There might be guidelines on what to include in the paper, how to cite things. Citations have become real important. Plagiarism has been a big issue in the news lately. And so some guidelines if you're editing a book, the book authors guidelines on when they're going to get their chapters in, or first drafts, second drafts, and who's going to review. If you're submitting a paper for a book, you're often asked to be a reviewer of other people's chapters. So there might be guidelines and instructions on how to be a reviewer. And as a book editor, you want to be respectful of other people's timelines. Mika might have a time in her life where her kids are graduating from high school and so forth, and she's taken them to college, camps and so forth. There might be no time to finish her chapter and so forth. Well, you want to be respectful of people's different timelines and agendas and find that out so that you can work with everyone and get the product done in a timely manner. So have an honest conversation with each team member about who's going to proofread, who's going to draft things, who's going to revise, and what order are you going to revise? What's the division of labor? What is the authorship order going to look like? Are there any guidelines for each other in working with each other? And then tracking changes or commenting. Are you going to rely on the comments section in Word, or are you going to track changes? Or lately, what I do is I normally track changes in the first edition, then I highlight in yellow. I don't track in the second or third or fourth. I highlight changes in yellow. And that's often a much faster and quicker process to go through and get things expeditiously looked at and done. I'm about 8 minutes. I saw Teresa showing up. About 8 minutes, I'll move over to Therese and Sune. And then, setting up, norms, collaboration norms, platforms, all these things. What are you, or if everyone's using Apple, a Mac, and I'm using a PC, is that going to be a problem? Is there going to be problems in transferring files? And then, if you're working on a team, you want to respect each other's time, but you also want to be responsive in terms of getting feedback to each other in a timely manner. And then also, if Ed has more time in the front end, you should let everyone know, I'm going to have more time, on Monday and Tuesday, or Wednesday, if someone else wants to go after me. It's all arranged. It's all, working with each other. And then, I have a paper or last night I was working on, I used meaning me. I had to change all that to make it flow and make it readable. So it was the team was writing this paper, not I wasn't writing this paper, and so forth. So looking for a common voice and a common, first person or third person or whatever. Let's see here. So Maina Ju, who's going to come in a couple weeks in here, she also talks about the networks being important in teaming, and working in a team can help get her ideas out faster. It can help her publish them in a higher quality. It can help each other share their expertise. It can help in terms of helping the general community out and getting that research found. And that's why often we'll have 3 team members, and each one has a different agenda, different skills, and so forth. And we all work with each other and try and get the most expeditious and highest quality work that we can. So know what skills you have to offer the team. Tell each other, what your skills are, what your interests are, what you like to work on, what you typically work on. If you found a new collaborator, tell them about yourself and share with them your CV, or share with them a few papers that you've written recently. But set the expectations up for working together. And and then explain what kind of tool, as I said earlier, what tools do you like to use? What resources do you like to use? And so forth. So that's the end of part 3. And I think I won't get to part 4. I will maybe mention it a couple things in part 4 before we go over to Sunmei and Charisse. But before I do that, Ed, do you have any collaborators that you could work with on papers? Would you have collaborators in mind?
For our current projects, no, but for future, yes, because they're going to the AECT conference. I met a couple people who were in some universities like North Texas, and they're doing similar topics, but they worked for like different tech companies in the same area.
Wow.
So we had some stuff on like onboarding. They finished their dissertation, did their PhD at that university, but they were continuing on that, and so I'm still in contact with them to look at future things.
So someone from North Texas is going to be a guest in my class tomorrow, but it's not a corporate person. It's a K6 person. So it's an early
Oh, okay.
childhood person. Yeah. She's got a paper in a special issue I did.
But
And
I mean, yeah, going to the conference was interesting too because I think one of your courses and I referenced something and that author was there at presenting and like, hey, I just referenced you last week.
isn't
So
that cool?
it was interesting. It was to have the actual people that you keep referencing their similar topic areas actually be there and like, oh, okay, now I can ask you more questions about what you meant by certain things.
So my first conference way back when, 1986, was 4 of the most famous people I ever met. I mean, who were the keynotes, and I got to talk to one of them, and another one I got to meet decades later. So you just never know. I didn't know anybody, but I sat next to a guy it was a football stadium in BC Stadium in Vancouver. The person next to me was from Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. I spoke 6 months ago to people in Ethiopia at that same university. It's now 30 some years later or whatever it is. So, you just never know, who you're going to meet with at a conference and have a connection with and so forth that will pay dividends potentially down the road. Mika, do you have any people that you have written papers with, worked with, or could do so in the future?
The people I've written with, yes, for the book chapter and a few people at IU, we worked together on one with Dr. Pawan, and I've met a few people on LinkedIn, and I've had friends who've already completed their EDDs and PhDs. And I see my aunt has PhD in ISD as well. So we've
Really?
talked about we've talked about working together in the future in a year or two. So yep, I have those planned out.
Yeah, well, that's very good. That's important. And because you were first one in here tonight, along with Tiana, I've made you a co-host in case my computer fries or I get kicked off. So it's important to have a co-host just as a backup for the internet. And then finally, Tiana, have you thought about collaborators?
So yes, I mean I've written articles with Mika, and also I've written some articles with Dr. Koo. So I'll still do some things with him, and then some other colleagues have reached out to work on some articles, but I want to give it some time so I can finish up my dissertation too. So I'll start working with them later on in the year. It's like Mika said.
Now, did you say Dr. Who or Dr. Koo, or what did you say?
Dr. Koo, George Koo.
Really?
Dr. Koo.
No kidding.
Yeah, I wrote a couple articles with him, and
Wow.
I did some presentations with him. So yeah, he was one of my professors when I was doing my higher ed degree. So we reconnected and did some work together with high impact practices. So it's kind of cool.
What's your higher ed degree?
In higher education, student affairs administration. So
A master's or certificate?
Yeah, master's.
Okay. So
Masters.
Sunmei's joined us. So Tiana has worked with George Koo, and if no one else knows who George Koo is, he's the most famous maybe the most famous education professor of all times from School of Education. If you know Google Scholar metrics called H-index and I-10 index, he has the highest in the whole School of Education. He's retired 10 years, but he did the National Survey and Student Engagement, was called the NSSE. He also did the one for high school students called the HESI, but the NSSE is used internationally to look at how active the learning environments are on college campuses and how, you know, community building and all sorts of things, fostering critical thinking and all that. So that and he had a whole center on that, and you know, and that had huge funding, and he's probably the only one who's presented in more places than I have around the world. So he's very networked and very very famous, actually. So yeah, it kind of shocked me because I've never had the chance to publish with George, but we're colleagues, we share back and forth, and you're very lucky to have had the opportunity to work with, you know, the most famous and most cited, his most citations of his work than probably any professor of all of the 100 years of the School of Ed. I'm guessing that he's the most cited of all time. Now, there may be somebody from way back in the 1930s or 40s, but you know, I doubt if they're cited as much because there weren't as many journals. So yeah, huge congrats. So now, you know, we're at past 6:15. I promised a half hour with Sunmei and with Therese. Now, Therese graduated about a year and a half ago or so, maybe a year and 2 months ago. Maybe that was it. It was a year. It was November, early November of 2022, or late November, early November 2022, and we were celebrating the night before her dissertation defense. Her and her husband came up from Grenada, and we enjoyed. She wouldn't drink too many beers, but I did get her to sip one, I think, that night. Sunmei graduated this past year, she went through graduation ceremonies in May 2023. And both of them have been my TAs in different classes, Sunmei in a number of them. And Therese was with me last semester, and so I'm glad to invite both of them back here now to give us a few pieces of advice about anything. It could be related to the qualifying, particularly the qualifying exams, but it could be anything related to the dissertation process. It could be anything related to writing in general and being a good researcher and so forth. And so I will let them pick up wherever they want during the next half hour. And we're recording this. We'll just leave this recording just flow tonight. And Mengwan Zhao will be with us in a half hour. So so I think I should go to start here with Therese, and she arrived first. So Therese, you want to share a little bit about your journey?
Oh, good night, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to share a little bit about my journey doing Quals. So, Dr. Bong, if I can share, do I have privileges to share screen?
You probably do, but I can make you a co-host if needed. But normally it doesn't.
Hold on, let me see.
You're a co-host now, so you should be. There you go.
Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Thumbs up? Yeah. Alrighty. So I just wanted to share some quick tips for Quals prep. How many of you, first of all, are doing multiple courses this term? Or are we just taking R795?
Ed, you have one class? Mika?
Just one class?
Just one class, just this.
And
All
Tiana?
right.
Oh, I have this in my stats class.
Oh,
Which stats class?
I have the 611.
611. Qualitative. Qualitative. Okay.
Yeah.
Qualitative.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not too bad, because this is going to be a lot this term, as you would have seen from the syllabus R795. And when you're taking Quals at the same time, it's a lot. So what really helped me was to practice. They say practice makes perfect, and you'll be surprised how fast those 3.5 hours goes by. So it's important to set yourself up for success. And some of the things that I did, and this was advice that I got from other students, as well as things that I learned along the way. So taking those mock exams on Canvas under exam conditions is really important to gauge your timing. Because I'll be honest with you, the first time I took the exam, I ran out of time. And based on that gauge, what I did was every weekend, I tried to improve on that timing, sit down and do some questions to improve on my timing. I also started using templates, and I started making my templates of what my cover page would look like, put in a references page, set it up so that when you're doing the exam, these things are done already. So it's just to start plugging in the information in there, because time goes fast. You want to be as efficient as possible. I also got advice from past students to read the last year of tech trends, because more than likely the article is going to come from the last year of tech trends. That helped me for two purposes: to become familiar with the article critique process and get my timing down, but it also helped me to expand my knowledge of current trends that are happening, things that I might be able to pull on for my dissertation topic to incorporate into my writing, to get leads on other research projects. So it also helped me to stay informed as well. But reading those tech trends articles were really important. What happened was that I actually read them, printed them, and made notes on them. So when it came to the exam, I was like, but I think I read this. This sounds familiar. And I was able to flip through and find that article really quickly in my stack. So I separated them out into different stacks, and I was able to find it. And that also helped me as well in terms of reading, because you're going to have to read the article a couple of times when you're doing your critique. Gather all of your research materials. So going back and pulling resources from R690, Y500, Y611, R621, and 521 were also really helpful for me to prep. When I did it, it was the proposal that we had to write. I know that has changed, but those resources also helped me to actually write the methodology section, and to help me come up with my research design. So I would definitely recommend going back through those research methods resources, and make sure that you have all of your resources formatted in a document, just in case you need to add them in as you go along. And for your committee question, think about your dissertation study. Think about the areas that you're really passionate about, and let that form the basis for your lit review. And then you can tweak that for your proposal. So you're still early in the game, probably still trying to figure out what your dissertation topic is. Does everybody have a sound idea of what their dissertation topic would be?
We haven't talked about that this semester. I don't want you going too far in this, but Ed, you have an idea?
Yes, I'm still looking toward formal learning.
Yeah, okay, that's enough. That's all we need on there.
Yeah.
And Tiana?
Yes, I'm still looking at high impact practices.
High impact?
Yes.
Okay. Mika?
And authentic learning during online speech therapy.
Right, okay, that's just, I don't
right.
want a lot of details, just because we're gonna hear it every week in the semester, so I want to still be curious about what you're doing, so I'm sorry, Sunmei, or Teresa, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was saying that's great that you all have some sort of idea that you're working with for your dissertation topic. So for each of these assignments, use that to build out a lot of your proposal. At the end of it, you're not going to have a fully fleshed out proposal unless you push really, really hard. But the point is that you have a framework to work with that you could then flesh out later on and submit as your final proposal. So use this opportunity to get feedback on your questions. That's what I did. I started off with 5 questions, and Dr. Bonk was like, well, I think you have 5 dissertations here. And at that time, I was like, man, why is he making me cut this? I really want to do this. But then I saw the wisdom when I actually started the research process of having to analyze the data, and I did mixed methods. So it became like two studies in one. And I was like, okay, this is why he told me just stick to 3 questions. So make sure that, you know, this is your opportunity to flesh out those questions with your advisors as well. And just do your literature review to gather all of your sources that you would be using. I'll pause here and ask if anybody has any questions.
When
So
you
you,
collected your, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go
When
ahead.
you collected your documents, what did you use? What tool did you use?
To store my documents?
Yes.
Okay, that's an excellent question. So I started off with EndNote, and I started saving everything in EndNote. However, for some reason, I didn't keep up with it. So EndNote is something that once you start downloading articles, you have to make sure and put them into EndNote and keep everything organized. What I ended up doing was keeping all of my articles, and I put them into folders, and I color coded them and categorized them. I actually did all of my references the old-fashioned way of actually writing it out. For me personally, it helped me to keep track of my references better and also learn APA really well. So that's why I did it that way. Lots of people use different citation tools, and EndNote is a really popular one. Some people use Mendeley as well. So it's really up to you. Zoho is another one that a lot of people use that's very popular. So it's entirely up to you. You can try it and see. I've attempted or Mendeley and EndNote on multiple occasions. It just didn't work for me, and that's just my preference. But there are other people that it works for. So it's really up to you.
So Sunmei, do you
Thank
have
you.
a similar answer, Sunmei?
So as for questions, yeah, actually, I don't like using the tool. So actually, old fashioned. So actually, I can collect every article under folder, and then actually I print out everything. So right now I have over 100 paper, and then actually color coded, and then it's better. I don't know, just for me, just to read the actual paper, it's better to understand, but it's up to you. Yeah, as Teresa said. So definitely, but anyway, collect more article as possible. And then even if, actually I collected over 200 paper, and then finally I just removed out later, multiple times I read. Yeah, definitely I say that I read all papers over 5 times. Sometimes some papers are really, really important, so I read 10 times. So finally just remove, and then right now it's around 100 papers left. But anyway, you have to decide what kind of way is the best for you. So there is no correct answer, I think. Yeah.
I totally agree with Sunmi. There's no correct answer. It comes down
Right.
to personal preference and trial and error, I think. I have a slide up on organization, and these are some things that really helped me in terms of creating those folders. And I color coded the articles as I read them through. Green ones were the ones that I'm keeping, that I'm definitely going to use. red ones are the ones that I don't need, purple ones are the ones that are in between. So I color coded all of my articles as well. And also keeping things organized. You're going to have multiple versions. I can't tell you the amount of times I had final, and dates and final, and then Dr. Bong gives me comments and he has his initials at the end. So you have to find a way of keeping track of your versions, come up with naming conventions for all of your drafts. And then also even like my research methods articles, I color coded those as well. References, as I said, I did them the manual way, and I just kept like a running list in Google Docs, and I kept them in alphabetical order. But you could decide whether you're going to use a citation manager. Some of those citation managers, like if you're using the ones in Word, they're not always accurate. So that's something to pay attention to. And you might find doing smart tables really helpful. I found them, I call them smart tables, but they're really like Excel sheets that list the author, the year, what the essence, what research methods they used. I have a couple, I can share them with you. But those help me to keep track of the important stuff in each article. So basically like a summary or a summary of the annotated bibliography then of what's in the article. And I will post those in a chat shortly. And the other thing I did was identify your goals and your timeline. So create a weekly schedule and try your best to keep up with it. It's okay if you don't, it's okay if you fall some weeks, but try your best to set those goals. This week, I'm going to read 2 articles. Or this week, I'm going to write this section. And that really helped to keep me on track, as well as keeping a notebook or a log, a journal of all of the ideas that come to mind. Sometimes you're sleeping, ideas come to mind. So I get up and I write it down and I go back to bed. Or you'll be in the grocery or on the bus or whatever. Just keep, some people keep it in notes in their phone of articles, or you may speak to someone in passing, you get ideas that you may be able to incorporate. So keep a book.
Sunmei, do you have a similar approach?
Oh, she's the best. You know, actually, I didn't do that. That's because I think that I was so lucky. That's because actually I come up with my idea really earlier compared to other students. So actually, second year, I started my topic. At the time, I collected articles. So actually, I had more time to compare to other students, right? So every time I collected some article from other classes, and then next class, I collected more. There's something like that. So I accumulated more articles. So that's the reason why I quickly finished my dissertation. I think, yeah, of course, Dr. Bong helped me a lot. But actually, I did a similar thing, color coding. And then actually I set the goal. So usually I made some kind of a blog, really short blog. So I write the note, I finish this article, something like that. And then, yeah, keep it, blog, something like that. And then it helped me a lot. Yeah.
So Ed had a question earlier. We cut him off and he never had to ask his question. What was your question, Ed?
Yeah, I think it was more toward the research questions, because I found that some of the other courses, you can generate a lot of research questions, but it depends which direction you're going with it and who your audience is. So like within formal learning, as I've sampled a couple of surveys and provided it to my coworkers, I can see which directions they're going, and they're going sometimes away from what I'm looking for. And Sharice, you mentioned about a mixed method. So did you do a qualitative part where you did a survey, saw what they were interested in, then formed that into the future research questions and formed your direction of where you wanted to go with it?
So for my mixed method study, I did a qualitative part where I used an instrument that was previously developed and tested for validity and reliability. And I added some questions to them. So like open-ended questions to collect the demographic information. And then I also did interviews and content review. So my study was on faculty attitudes towards inclusivity in blended learning environments. So for the quantitative part, I used an teaching inventory tool that was already developed and tested. And I used that to collect my quantitative data. After that, I also conducted interviews. So I conducted interviews with faculty across the different schools within my university. And I also looked at their courses in our learning management system. So that's how I collected my quantitative and qualitative data. I analyzed my quantitative data using SPSS, and I used Atlas TI to collect my data for to analyze my data for my qualitative part
So
of it.
how many participants?
So in my study, I think I had about 150 something faculty that
Wow.
responded to the quantitative part.
Quantitative.
And for the qualitative part, I interviewed about 15 faculty members and looked at their courses.
Wow.
I had
Wow,
lots to
that's great.
transcribe.
Right. That's great. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It felt
Actually,
like two
yeah.
studies, two separate studies that
Wow.
I had to merge together.
Did you have another researcher to help you?
Nope,
That's
I
because
didn't.
that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Really big scope. That's because, as for me, that's because I only focused on one course. So that's only 17 students. So actually, quantitative result is not very good. That's because of 17. So I actually performed the interview. So at that time, 14 students replied. So that was really good. So I really focused on qualitative. Actually mixed method, but I think the qualitative part would be better, I think. That's because most of the students reply to my, interview request. So that's good. Yeah.
So I noticed that Mengwan has come early, so we now have more instructors than we have students. We have 4 instructors and 3 students with us tonight. So please ask questions if you have them. So, how many more slides do you have, Therese?
That's about it. I'm just
Okay.
kind of jumping around based
Okay.
on questions that people may have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to turn off your sharing then till, does Sunmi, did you bring any slides tonight or?
But actually, you said that I didn't bring any slide, but actually, I just shared the last time I shared. And then, frankly speaking, actually, I got a COVID positive yesterday.
Oh,
So
no.
actually, I don't feel very good, but I think that I have to be here. That's because I have to share something that I know. That's the reason. So anyway, just I want to share a little bit, but already Teresa shared everything. So I think that just one thing I want to recommend, just to find partner. That's the best way for EDD students. That's because we are online students. We always feel isolated from other students, right? So actually, for me, as for EDD qualified exam, I was so scared. I don't know. That's because nobody told me about this one, right? So actually, I found other classmates. So I made a group. So actually, 4 students. So we worked together. So we met every 2 weeks, and then we shared what I did. So usually the first time, so we talked about the topics we learned from the last 3 years, right? So we made the course list, and then we come up with what kind of question with this class, something like that, right? So for example, online learning, collaborative learning, something like that, VR, a lot of topics we could bring, and then we talked about that one and then brainstorming. So that was really helpful, and then we can save time. So that one is actually, I explained the last time, so I changed a little bit, but almost the same thing. That's because I heard that this time the format was different, right? So a format was the same, but topic, just one one topic is changed, right? So day one is written test, two writing. So one writing is the same, but the other writing has been changed. I heard that. And then day two is oral presentation. So written test is 3 hours and a half, maybe, right? Same thing, right? So total 7 hours. So they are just 1 hour, 1.5 hour break, I think, right? So everything is online, no supervisor, but we have to focus on writing. That's because Teresa already said it's a really, really short time. Even I don't think about it. So I have to be, prepared. So always recommend to create your own template already. So for example, as for the article critique, you have to make a template for yourself. Don't copy others. You have to create your own. That's the best way, I think, right? And then day second is okay, I think. That's because you have tons of time, and then it is about your dissertation topic. So you just think that, oh, I can spend time for my dissertation. So no pressure. Always, I think that oral presentation is kind of information session for you. So you can share your plan for dissertation, and then your committee member just give feedback, and then you can update or improve your dissertation. So I think there's no pressure, the second one. Just the first one is a little bit stressful. That's because it's time limited, right? So always really short time. I think the 3.5, oh, really long time, but I started, I already, oh my God. And then multiple times I practiced, already ran out, never met the due, timeline. So I was really scared. So that one is written exam exactly. I got the email the last time, and then something like that, we got the, document, and then they are question one. Question is everyone has a different schedule. For example, I'm in California, so I got the different starting schedule. So if you live on the different time zone, just to recast. That's because sometimes it's 7 a.m. start, but my time is 5 a.m. I can wake up, right? At that time, just recast. Always a committee member or, professors are really, generous. So always give the, flexibility. So I can start late, 2 hours late, I think. So yeah, something like that. The one is the kind of a process. So receive the test schedule before the email, and then they said that, oh, you can start, and then we can start, right? And after that, you can submit. So you can submit, and then you have to get the confirmation email. So don't leave your desk, okay? Before getting your confirmation email from maybe Dr. Won, I think right now, right? At that time, Dr. Gross. And then, yeah, something like that. You can use any available resources. It's kind of a trick, but already, actually I opened all online, resources already, and then template. That's because I have to use anything. So for example, a lot of reference I need already, I, research, and then I made the list. And then every time I just copy and paste, reference. Yeah, something like that. But I don't know, this format doesn't require reference list. I'm not sure, but as for my time I needed, so I already created a lot of, reference list. That's because always it's really hard for me to write a correct reference list. That's one. So that one oral presentation is easy. That's because 3 weeks or 1 month, period to prepare. So I think that's it. So actually, the first recommendation is to find another partner and then to work in a group. It's the best way, I think. Actually, I talked to my group member. They said that they agree with me. That's because we feel kind of connected. Already we have questions, we can talk to each other, right? So even if we don't, meet online, we can exchange a lot of email about this topic, something like that. And then we can give some feedback on others' working. So other students created article critique. At the time, we can give some feedback. And then that was really helpful, actually. And then recommend practice a lot, at least third time, just to do that, and then you are okay, I think. That's it. Yeah, as for the qualifying exam, that's it. Yeah. And then Teresa already shared everything about the dissertation. Yeah.
Thank you, Sunmei. I've got a couple of comments on what you said. The last two times I've taught this, in particular the last time, the students have mentioned that partnering or working with other teams and practicing was very helpful. And as I said last time, the last 3 semesters, or at least the last 2 times I've taught this class, no one has flunked their quals. No one has even had to do revisions because they worked with a team. So we've had some really good quals takers anyhow. The other thing to point out is that Sunmei did not take 795 with me. So when she said she was lost when she took quals, she was not in my class. She took a different person's class. So don't blame that one on me. Sunmei was my TA in this class. She knew this, like you could see, she knows what to recommend and so forth. So and she's really gifted in being able to organize a lot of ideas and ramp up her dissertation fairly quickly, as you see, and that was helpful for her to be able to juggle a work life, full-time work life, and to try and do a dissertation, to be planful, be organized, do a lot of things as you can on the front end, so that on the back end, if difficulties come up, you can adjust and modify your dissertation, get permission to modify or change. But if you have a plan or a scope, that being said, as I said last week, 90% of dissertation proposal meetings, someone on your committee will want to change your research questions some way. Just might be wording changes, might not be substantive, but someone will want to tinker with them anyhow. Some people will they'll do a major overhaul, and that's pretty much the telling sign in terms of how if it's a major overhaul of your questions, then things are not clicking too well. So in this class, you're going to submit your research questions, I think, in a week for me, a week from today, maybe, or something, with a grace period, a couple days. We'll come back to research questions over and over and over and over again because it's so important. It kind of sets the stage for the whole thing. Sunmei or Therese, do you want to do any other comments you want to make? I'm sorry, Sunmei's got COVID. You look great, Sunmei. You don't look like someone who's suffering from COVID. So
I'm okay. So I'm so lucky. I think that's because my husband got a COVID last week. He was really sick. And after that, I think that I'm okay. That's because I tested 2 times before. But yesterday, my husband was okay. And then he was okay. And then I got tested and I got positive. So weird, but I don't have any fever. Just I have a little bit, cold symptom, a little bit runny nose, a little bit cough. But I'm okay. So working hard right now at home. Even, do more working. So
since we left last time, Sunmei's got news and Mika's got news. So Sunmei's daughter started college and Mika has a new child, a son or a daughter, Mika? A son.
A son, yes.
Yeah. Can you hold up a picture to the camera for us?
Oh my God.
Let me get my-
Congratulations.
Thank you. He's 5 months old now.
Oh.
Dr. Bach put me on the spot.
Sunmei, you have a picture of your
Lovely.
daughter to share, Sunmei?
I have a lot of pictures. Hold on.
Sunmei's looking too. Okay.
Right now she's in London. Yeah, actually this month she went to London. Yeah, to study for
she a
1 semester.
Northeastern University student?
Yeah.
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 Very,
You can see
There we
the
go.
little-
All right. Yeah.
Adorable. So cute.
Thank you.
A lot of love we're sending. Okay. Teresa, the love button. Sunne, did you find a picture of your daughter in college yet? You got one?
Actually, I have a lot of, but just right now is London, and then every time she sent a lot of, right now it's just to her friends,
Ah, Hold
yeah,
it
a
up
lot
close,
of, yeah.
closer.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we're the,
There we go. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of
Fun-
things about,
Plenty of selfies, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that one
Fun.
is London, right? Yeah,
Yeah. London
yeah,
Bridge.
yeah. London Bridge. Yeah,
Good for her.
London
Yeah.
Bridge.
It's one of my favorite spots.
That's not study trip, I think. Actually, right now it's 400 students went there for study same time. So every weekend there is a special event for them.
Wow.
So it's kind of trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so fun for them.
Sounds
Yeah.
like it. It's
Yeah.
one of those times you want to be a helicopter parent and show up in London.
I don't want it, but she wanted, so mom, when? So, oh, I think I'm busy, already. But she wanted, so I'm
Ah.
thinking, yeah. So,
Any other pictures to share tonight before we go to Mangwan? Anyone else have?
yeah,
So,
just ask questions, whatever you have. That's because from my experience, I have a lot of questions. That's because I never heard, about the qualifying exam from the, alumni, something like that, right? So it's really hard. Yeah.
so before Sunmei and Therese have to leave, let's ask them one more question, whatever it is. What was Mika? Go ahead.
I have one more question. So, any tips on reading articles fast? So, that is something that I've been working on, and just a way to read them and really get to the meat of the matter on time so I can get to writing the information and be done in maybe 2 hours and proofread. I know that's a stretch, or 3 hours and use the 30 minutes to proofread. Any tips? What
Let
you
me go
did?
first. Yeah, actually,
Yeah, I'll go
for me,
last. I have some
actually,
tips. Go
yeah,
ahead.
first
Sunmei.
time just to check the abstract always, and then it's good for us, good for me at the time read, and then actually conclusion. It's the way abstract conclusion, it's okay, and then result, something like that. And literature review is the last part. So always abstract and then just the conclusion, and then you have to decide.
So
Okay, if I can take this one or not. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I skim and scan the articles.
Okay.
So I skim them through, and then Sunmi is absolutely correct. You read the abstract first, then I read the first 2 lines
Mhm.
of the introduction, and then the last 2 lines of the introduction, because that's where they summarize it. And then I read the conclusion. Again, first 2 lines,
Mhm.
last 2 lines, and then I go back and I scan for dates or keywords in between, and I read around that. And then
So, go ahead.
another person had told me just read the first 2 lines of each paragraph, or the last 2 lines of each paragraph, because the last 2 lines usually summarizes the paragraph. So that's another tip that I got.
And then another tip is that usually, number of reference is the good article. So I check that one and then check the reference list, and then just to refer to some of them. Yeah, that is the best way to collect more valuable article from my experience.
Yep.
So,
you.
here's what I do. I read the title, and then I get to the abstract, and then I just start reading the intro, and then I read the literature review until I can't, until it's too slow. And then I stop and I go to the end Well, actually, the first thing I do is read the references. I look at everyone's references first thing. Then I start plowing through it, and as soon as it bogs down, I go to the end and I start reading backwards. I'll read the conclusions, I read the implications, then it might be the limitations, then it might be the conclusions, and then discussion. Then I go back to the literature review again. I might start reading a little more. And if it might get bogged down again, I'll go read the findings. And then go maybe try again. And if I'm bogged down, I'll read the methodology. And then I'll finish the literature review. So literature review is attacked in spurts, okay? Because normally it's the most dense part. And a lot of times I'm not that interested in each study that might be talked about, but I kind of want to learn them. You know, I'm kind of curious about what people have done. So I kind of really want to read the whole literature review, but more important is to read those implications, limitations, and future directions, maybe even the conclusions, because that's where you're going to find the gaps in the research. That's where you're going to find out what you're going to want to work on. So the end of the article is a whole lot more important than the beginning of the article. And I did my dissertation, I've told you this before, I had in my closet, I had a piece of paper, about 7 pieces stapled, and I had articles I read, and I put down the name of the article, the name of the title, and I put down the gap that was found and the page number of the gap. So by the time, for each article that I was interested in, something I was interested in, and by the time I dissertated, I had 68 ideas for a dissertation on that piece of paper. It was in the closet. Couldn't look at it every day. When I started reading a paper, I'd pull out of the closet, I started reading a little more different, and I went with idea number 48, which is a combination of 2 different ideas. So, you know, just constantly marking. We used to print out papers like Sunmei did, and I'd mark them up. I'd write right on them, here's a gap. And you're not going to find the gaps too often in the literature review, but you will find sometimes in the literature review. Now, I read books the same way. I read, at the beginning, I move forward, and I get bogged down reading the book, then I start reading backwards. I like reading backwards. And because psychologically, you're always making progress. You only have to read the future direction. That's a half a page. Okay, I got that done. You only have to read the limitations. Oh, that's each of these are short, as opposed to literally 10 pages. Oh, I don't want to read 10. It's or 50-page dissertation literature review. Oh my God, you know. So yesterday I got a dissertation proposal, 160 pages or something like that. 80 pages was the appendices. The proposal is only 60 pages, you know. So, you know, it's all psychological. You've got to find a way to break down the psychology behind all the heavy reading. And one way to break down the psychology is to divide up into short bursts and focus on that. So I guess we should say thank you to Sunmei and Therese. Do you have any final comments, Sunmei and Therese? I want a question for you, Sunmei and Therese. So I brought 4 books up with me here from downstairs. Did you buy this book, How to Do Your Research Project, A Guide for Students? Either one of you have that book? No. Did you buy this book or download this book, The Craft of Research?
Yeah,
Okay. Is it good?
it's a good book.
Is it free in Dropbox from Dr. Bog?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you get
It's a quiz.
Digital Tools for Qualitative Research by Jessica Lester, a faculty in IU? Did you get this book, Digital Tools for Qualitative Research?
Not the new one, but she did
Yeah.
teach us.
Okay,
Yeah,
she took her
same thing.
class.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So with Trina Paulus, a former student, and Jessica Lester was her student. So both IU kind of people. Conducting qualitative research conducting qualitative research of learning in online spaces. You probably
Sounds
never
good.
heard of that.
Yeah, never.
Yeah, that
It
came
sounds
out in
good.
2017, Hannah Gerber, 2017. So both those qualitative books are good, short. They're both Sage, which Sage does a lot of research books. Anyways, I just brought these up. Sunmei, you were going to say something before you left?
No, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's an honor. And then see you, Meika and Tiana. Actually, I was TA for, those students before, right? So I'm really happy to see you again in class.
We're
Yeah.
happy to have you, definitely. Therese?
I was just typing my information in the chat, but thank
Okay.
you so much for having me. I hope this was helpful and good luck this semester. If you have any questions, I'm leaving my contact information in the chat so you can reach out.
Good
Great.
luck.
Everyone wave. Great. Thank you both. Thank you,
Bye.
Sunmei. Thank you, Therese. And we'll move on to Mangwan. I hope to see you guys soon.
See you,
Bye.
Sweet.
Maybe
Bye-bye.
we'll bring
Elise.
you back at some point this semester. We'll bring them back. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Say hi to Nick.
I will. He's probably having a bear for you.
Tell him to save one then for me. Okay. All right. Mangwan is next. And Mangwan, we'll cede control over to you. I might refill my tea at some point because it's empty.
Sure.
My water is still here, but I might duck out for a quick second.
Okay.
So do you have anything prepared, or I usually do? I know you well enough, Mangwan.
I do. Let me share my screen, but I don't want to do PowerPoint this time. Oh, this is my manuscript. We'll get to that. And I also have all of my calls and dissertation materials just on my fingertips if you ever want to see anything. I am happy to share. So this one is, let me see. Got confused by a couple of, yeah, so I did a couple of infographics. I don't think I need to spend too much time on tips for calls because I believe the previous two presenters, they already shared a lot of good information. This one may be helpful though. So the second infographic, I outlined my timeline from where you are right now all the way to I officially graduated last July.
Wow.
So
Mm.
the timeline, I don't know if you guys are interested to take a look.
Yeah,
I finished everything in a year and a half.
you
So
can send me that to share
yes,
with them.
definitely I will. I consider my entire process smooth. I know, Mecca, you have a little boy. I don't know if you have more kids. So when I was in this process, I have two young daughters. One was about 2-year-old, another 5. Now they are 6 and 3. Yeah, so I was really juggling between my life, work, and the study. I can share some tips, and I believe if I can do this, you can do this as well. Okay, so shall we go through my my timeline?
Sure.
So this is, you can see 2 years ago, January 2 years ago, 2022, I started taking this course, 795, but I took it from another instructor, same as Sumi's. Sumi and I, we were in the same class. So January, I select my dissertation topic. So I focus on selecting a topic. I knew I wanted to graduate as soon as I could. So when I select a topic, at the time, January, I give myself a couple of possible options. And then really, I talked to Dr. Bang. I talked to previous or IST doctoral students, talked to my stakeholders to try to narrow down to one. So by the end of January, I picked the topic. I decided that will be the one I'm going to go for it. So the tips for you, definitely decide your topic early because you really don't have much time, at least for this course, right? You know, you want to decide topic and move forward. And when you select the topic, find one that you are interested in, and you're also confident to complete it within your timeline. What I mean here is, you know, see if you want to finish your dissertation fairly quickly, see if you could build on your previous work, like your literature review that you have done from the readings class, IST readings class, from the, we have the IST research course, right? You know, where you build a simple proposal, mini proposal. And I also took some independent study courses with Dr. Bunk. I did a gamification research myself. See if you can draw upon all these literature review, the work you have done. Micah asked a question earlier about how to read fast. My tip isn't really on the reading part, is how you could leverage some of your previous work, your literature review and your knowledge. And I really think the dissertation is a conclusion, right? It's a pulling in everything together project. Okay, move on to February and March. February and March, I focus on literature review. I dissect my dissertation topic. My topic, by the way, I study faculty scaffolding practices for enhanced learning engagement in a social learning environment, which is the social platform my team built. It's called course networking, so it's in my work context. So I dissect my research topic into 3 constructs, and I did the literature review from these 3 constructs. Let's see. Set up an appointment with the School of Education librarians. If you haven't done that, once you have decided your topic, maybe that's still a little vague, right? You're deciding on the wording of your topic. That's okay. With that general topic, or I say, not too general, the decided topic, talk to the librarian, School of Education librarian, because they are very helpful. They get your topic. They may even help you out with the dissect of the keywords, and then real time they will in front of you put your keywords into several commonly used journal sites to see where you can get the most of the articles and which one is the most easy to use. And so I picked one based on their recommendation. Did I use other journal source to find more articles? I picked into other ones, sometimes Google Scholars, but I pretty much begin with one portal that they recommended. Yeah, and that one resulted in many good articles. Yeah, so this is also the time I come up with my responses to the qualification exam day 2 responses. Because I remember Dr. Bunk, most of the 3rd question, right, or the day 2 questions are based on the literature review part of your dissertation. The questions are not that into methodologies and other things yet. So yeah, and try to also do smart work. See if while you are writing your dissertation, the literature review part, you could use what you have written for the answers to the Quals exam question 3. I did that, so saved me a lot of time. Okay, so move on to April. April, I focused on my study design. I came up with my overall procedure. I took a mixed method approach. I immediately shared my plan with Dr. Bunk. He shared some feedback with me, and I delved into designing my data collection instruments. I come up with observation sheets. If you have a survey, you could design survey questions. I did not have survey, so I designed my faculty interview questions. You may also begin exploring data analysis tools. And Envivo, I have difficulty pronounce that name. Envivo, Envivo is a good one for qualitative data analysis. Later on, while I was already in my later stage of the data analysis, I learned it, but it was too late. I wished I knew it earlier and start learning it, using it. But this is something. Check out Envivo. It's an IU tool, I believe. At least last year, it was still provided by IU for free, to IU students for free. Okay, so I stepped
That's
into
for
the
qualitative methods.
qualitative.
Envivo is not something
Envivo.
IU created. It's not, we didn't make it. We just
Mm,
borrow
correct.
it. We pay a fee to let students have access to it. I also point out the committee questions she mentioned earlier.
Committee question.
It is related to more your literature review. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be a good question that we have you do. For most people, it leads to a section of their dissertation, and that's helpful for them. But it doesn't have to be a one-to-one match. It just has to be something that they're kind of interested in, but maybe haven't done a lot of research, and you have a month then to study and to write this up. So right now, this time of the semester, if you're taking quals, you should be talking to your advisors about your committee question and get that plugged in so that you can schedule it. So I think there's a due date. I don't know what the due date is, but if you are taking quals this semester, the due date's probably coming up pretty quickly here. So just be aware of it. Ed?
Yeah, 26th of January.
Of January. So
coming
okay,
up.
get that, and it's normally revised. So we don't take we got what you submit, and then we make it harder. No, typically we make it a little more. Usually the questions typically the students ask are either too hard or they're too easy, and we find the Goldilocks. We get it somewhere in between, right? That we want it challenging and something you're learning from, but not so arduous that you're overwhelmed and frustrated. So yeah, there's a happy medium so you have to plan for it. You have to take that into account. I noticed that Angie's shown up here, and we'll be with you, Angie, in a few minutes if you bear with us. It's great to have you here. Angie's a math specialist, a literacy specialist, a reading specialist, instructional design. She's passionate about instructional design. She's a teacher educator when she was back with Baker College in Michigan. So she's kind of done it all here, and now she's working for Springboard, I think it is. Springboard Collaborative, and she'll talk about that for a little bit. But Mengwan, why don't you go ahead and complete what you're on? We'll ask you some questions, and then we'll switch it over to
I will
Angie.
try to move on faster. Yep. So that May, I submitted my dissertation proposal, and then I immediately worked on the IRB. Because earlier I mentioned I already designed my interview questions, observation sheets. So these detailed instruments are required when you submit your IRB. Get them ready, right? I probably did like maybe a couple rounds of revisions of my IRB, but that was not daunting. I remember I passed very easily. And I defended my proposal in early July. There were some revisions, and I was able to get all of those revisions done with Dr. Bunk's help within a month. So, I become a candidate at the end of July 2022. And then you can see the type.
Before you go on,
yeah,
IRB used to be harder. And it could become harder again. You just don't know sometimes. So don't take it, because Mengwan had it pretty easy. Don't take it lightly. Get it in as soon as, try and get it approved actually before your proposal meeting.
I see.
Now you might have to change it based on your proposal meeting, because the faculty will change your dissertation research questions. But it's advantageous to try to submit it before, because actually we can't sign the form passing a dissertation proposal until you get IRB approval. So you don't want to have your defense and then be planning to do the study 2 weeks later. If you haven't submitted that IRB, it could be a couple of months till you get approval, and that messes up the whole schedule. So it's better to submit it, and maybe making a change later is easy. If you get it approved, just a minor change, you can only submit, we're going to have 100 people in this instead of 50, or we're going to have a survey, we're going to have an extra 5 questions on the survey. That's an easy thing to get approved, okay? So you might as well get it approved and have a minor modification. The other thing to point out with IRB is they've changed the rules about how often you have to take the exam. It's called the city exam. It's got like 12 parts or 11 parts. It used to be every 2 or 3 years. I think they've changed it to 5. So I just took it recently, and I don't think I would take again for another 5 years, maybe 7. But I think it's 5. I'll try and look this up while Mengwan's continuing here, and I'll see what the policy is. So that's the good news for everyone here. Good news is it's not what it is. So IU messed up some studies. I heard it was eyeballs of monkey study or something. I could be wrong, but they messed up some IRB, and they put the whole IRB process on hold. I mean, they suspended it. No one could get a study approved for a while. That was about 10 or 12 years ago. It was really bad. And for about 4 or 5 years after that, it was so slow. I had one study took a year to get it approved, especially if you deal with students, K-12 kids. If you deal with young people, if they're over 18, it's not as hard. Now, Andrew or Adam Mills will come in from the IRB office in a few weeks. Don't miss that. He'll be with us and it'll be recorded. He's really good and he'll give us some tips on that. So sorry, Mangwan, I just wanted to point that out.
Good
And
tips.
sorry, Angie, it's really important to mention
Yep.
that. So Mangwan, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, I submitted my IRB initially early June. And because my study didn't involve students, my study mainly was with faculty members. So that may be why mine was relatively easier. Yeah. Okay, so now you can see I moved down to my dissertation study stage. So last September to December, I focused on data collection, and I analyzed my data almost at the same time. I didn't wait until all of the data was in and then I begin the analysis. This is my tip. See if you could analyze your data alongside your data collection. Right. Once I collect data from one course, I begin analyzing before I begin interview the next faculty and observing their course. So January was a frustrating moment after I had all of my data and some analysis, right? So this is the time I really felt overwhelmed. How to put all of these things together and writing my dissertation. So I give a whole month to come up with my dissertation, like a outline, right? A gist. But the first couple of chapters, you already pretty much have those, right? The literature review and your research methods part. But remember, the methods parts need revisions. Previously in the proposal, you write that in future tense. And when you come back to it in the dissertation, you need to make sure you revise the tense should be a past tense, and you need to include the data, reintroducing the data you have collected. So February, I focused on revising my methodology part, and I worked on the writing findings. And March, I focused on discussions. This is the writing heavy part. If you ask me, as a full-time person, how I find time to write, where I find time. So I write at night, on weekends, but not whole weekends. Sometimes a few hours here and there, Sunday afternoons. A few weeks I went to my office on weekends to just have a whole day. I could write a lot. And I also took a few PTO days. Not that many. Now I look back, probably four PTO days. So once you reach to this stage, you have good data and good ideas. It should be not that difficult to put things together, write them out. And after that, early April, I formatted everything, submit to Dr. Bunk. Luckily, he got back to me and said, "Oh, doesn't look bad." And Meng Yuan, you could proceed, attend the graduation ceremony. So I attend the ceremony in May. Well, now I should circle back. I forgot one thing. Well, if you want to walk in May, right, and graduate that summer, like my schedule, you want your name to appear on the what is that called, the commencement program. There's a booklet with your name and your dissertation title, those things in. You need to apply for graduation much earlier. I would recommend by January.
Traveling from China, like Mangwan, you want to get, now you can still graduate. You can still go, even if your name's not in the program. It doesn't matter. You could decide the day of. It's okay. And faculty could decide the day of. They want to attend the grad. They have extra caps and gowns there at the ceremony to just whip on a cap and gown. IU will pay for that for faculty. So, convince your advisor, even if they're not sure they're going to come. Well, tell them, could you decide maybe later, just, see if you free up and all that. It's really important for me to have you there if possible. It's not, because sometimes it just works out. So don't feel you have these deadlines and things that are due, but there's a little flexibility in the system. So don't look at it and say, "Oh, I missed that date," all right? It's not going to be possible. Just, breathe in, breathe deeply. It might be possible, so yeah.
That happened to me. I didn't apply graduation early enough. So my name and my dissertation title didn't appear on the commencement program. but that's okay. I feel it's okay. But if you could, remember to apply graduation earlier
Yeah,
in,
and she was with-
January.
She was with Sumi. I think they defended a week apart from each other. They were both in May. I had, right? I had
Yeah, yeah,
five people, advisees graduate last May.
yeah.
So we had a whole group. We just hung out together. We sat together
Very
at the
fun.
graduation. We went in together. We walked together, all that. So it was a little community that we have, that we had. But then once it ends, everyone seems to go off in their own directions all over the
A
place.
lot of people.
And I was
Yes.
left by myself. Oh, where'd it go? Nobody wants to take me to dinner. Oh no.
It's a big day. It's a fun day. Find Dr. Bunk, take photos with him.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah, IU actually took a picture of me and one of my John Felci on the way in that got posted to the IU homepage this time. I don't know if Mangwan knew about that, but
Yeah.
as we walked in the
Wonderful.
ceremony, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, just last tip. Yeah.
yeah,
So Dr. Bunk mentioned it. You may not find someone work with you on calls or dissertations, but definitely find someone to graduate with you. I'm talking about the last couple of steps. Oh, I forgot to mention. My dissertation defense was in June. Sume was step by step with me. Defense, and we walk together, defense, and then there's a lot of paperwork toward the last part. You need to submit a lot of things to the what is it,
Graduate
that
Studies
office.
office.
Yeah, the office, and they were not really I would say clear on a lot of things. So when you have graduation buddies, at that moment is very helpful. You can check on each other and see if you are all moving to the right direction on the right time. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I checked on there. It is 5 years now with the city exam. It's not just IU; it's different universities. The city exam itself has changed to a 5-year instead of 3-year. And forms, even if your advisor has been on 137 dissertation defenses like me, he or she may not know what forms need to be filled out, may not know how the forms are filled out for the actual signature or an email message. But believe me, we do. We sign. Sume's dissertation happens, and a day later we forget the whole process. So don't rely on the professors to know what to do. Talk to the graduate studies office, and even they don't know exactly, as you point out. You know,
Exactly.
it's kind of crazy, but yeah. Any questions for Mangwan?
So my question, maybe I misunderstood it. So this was a dissertation process with Quals in it?
Yes. So
Okay.
that timeline you saw
Wow.
begin with exactly the same time, right? 2 years ago when I took this course, 795. Yeah, and move along, the proposal defense, and then move into working on the dissertation, and after that, some graduation, and dissertation defense and final stuff. A year and a half total
you.
from now to the end. Yeah.
Thank you for that. You'll send me that and I'll share it with everybody. We've got
Yep.
people who are not here tonight that will want to get this.
Definitely.
Why don't you take a stop at the sharing at this point? And we should all thank Mangwan for this. Let's wave.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming tonight. She was my TA back in 2011 or 2010 when she was a master's student. So I've known her for quite a while. Before she had kids, I helped her get the job at IUPUI, and it might be now part of Purdue University. And even who knows? Did they ever find out are you going to be part of Purdue?
Yes. Yeah, and actually we are moving to ECE, Electrical Computer Engineering, to that department. Some changes there.
I feel sorry for you, but at least it's Purdue. I mean, it's it's still in Indiana, but yeah, I was hoping you would stay with IU, but okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's working with course networking, which used to be an app within Canvas or a plugin within it. It's like a social media wall to like Twitter and Facebook wall with a learning management system combined. That was her dissertation on the course net, thecn.com. And the person she worked with, Ali Jafari, built OnCourse, which we used as a learning management system before Canvas. He also built Angel, which sold to Blackboard for $100 million. So the guy she works with and for he also built e-portfolio tools, and they're now building an AI tool called Rumi that's built within course networking. So Mangwan's got a fascinating job and people she's working with, and it's great to have her with us tonight. Thank you. Maybe we'll bring you back before the end of the year when students present the last day. Last year, Angie came back the last day and gave students feedback on their final projects, and yeah.
My pleasure. Yeah. Well, good luck, everyone. I put my link to the chat box. I will send it to Dr. Bunk as well. Okay. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you,
Okay,
Dr. Bunk.
we'll talk. Okay, Angie, you're the last of 5 people. You're the 5th of 5. First is me, then Sune, Sol, and Charisse came in from Grenada. Sune came in from Stanford. I came in from Bloomington, and then Mangwan came in from Indianapolis. Now you're coming in from maybe Grand Rapids, or is that right?
Yes. Yep.
So-
I live right by Grand Rapids, Michigan.
So, it's in the news a lot for whatever reason. Are they getting snow up there, like buckets of snow or not?
Oh yeah, we have about 2 feet right now.
Whoa!
Yeah, we have a lot of snow. It just keeps coming too. So yeah.
Fortunately, you're working remotely. You don't have to drive to the office, right? Because they're like in
Oh.
Baltimore or someplace like that, or where they?
Yeah, the home office is in Pennsylvania, but
Okay.
I love working from home. It's wonderful.
And so before you get into some of these tips and that, what's Springboard Collaborative do so people can be aware of it?
Oh, this is my favorite part because I'm so excited about the mission of this company. So I come from the field of education, and I've been a reading specialist, and literacy is my jam totally. And so this company, what we do is we work with schools we work with schools to support families to know how to teach literacy, and we bring everybody together as a part of like a family team to work with teachers. And so, all of us who have kids, like, they don't come with directions, right? They don't come with directions for how to care for them. They don't come with directions for how to learn how to read. So we have family workshops where everybody comes together and we discuss reading tips, and it's just awesome. It's awesome work, and it's just so fun to go and watch family workshops. And I write the professional development for all of the teachers. So like, that part is just amazing, and going and seeing it in person, just fills you all the way up. It's awesome.
Well, I'm glad that you found a situation which is exciting, energizing, and something you'd be passionate about, because it's unfortunate that things aren't working in a lot of small colleges and universities in the US today. A lot of them are having troubles, and like Baker College was having, where you were, financial problems and other kinds of things. So it's great to see the rebound.
That was tough. That was a tough blow. I used to be the program director of the teacher ed department there, and enrollment's down everywhere. But people don't want to be teachers anymore, unfortunately. So they decided to end the program. And so I taught it out, and I ended up staying. I got the job at Springboard in July of 2022. And I still had one group of students in my teacher ed program. So I worked both jobs, which was insane. I do not recommend that to anybody, but I'm glad I did it. In the end, I'm glad I did it, but holy cats, I look back and I'm like, what was she thinking? But I could not let this final group of students, like, I couldn't even imagine saying to them, like, oh, I got a new job, peace out. I couldn't do that. So I just sucked it up, and I just did it.
Yeah. And you also have been very helpful for me in this class. So Angie was my helper last year. She came the first week and last week, and maybe once in between to talk to folks. And so, she's done this talk for 3 or 4 times before. I think every time I've taught the course. It's very informative, extremely informative. But given we've had 4 presenters tonight, I think maybe a half hour going through some highlights. If it goes a little more than that, okay, but try and shoot for that. And
You got it.
they've got the handout, they've got your bio, so they've got the points. So if you could really, it's more of the wisdom and advice. And then also, oftentimes, as you know, people want to know the specific tools. What was it exactly? So both the macro level, and then the real nitty gritty kinds of things. If you could go through,
Yeah, no problem. It sounds like you already have a link to the doc, but in case you didn't, I put it in the chat.
Thank you.
I can see some of us are in it, but I'll just go ahead and, can I share my screen? I'll share my screen here so that you can see it too.
Yeah, I'll make you a co-host so that you can share your screen, but you're already sharing it, so yeah.
There we go. Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Hooray. Okay. So a little bit about my bio, the stuff from Angie.
No, I actually accidentally hit the pause button. I'm looking for the chat. Okay, yeah. I was trying to hit the chat so I could click myself here. There we go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of small. So
is it a little small? Let's make it bigger here.
Yeah, I could show mine. It would probably be bigger off of my screen if it's not.
Yeah, go ahead.
But no, you go ahead. I'd rather have you control it if you can make that bigger for us.
Okay.
See what's no, it's not changing.
It's not changing. Let me see. I think this is not a great start for me to share to show how tech savvy I am here.
That's still kind of small. No, why don't you stop sharing? Let's try my screen once.
All right, you share it, and then I'll just talk through it.
Let me see if mine is bigger or not.
I was going to show. Did you try hitting where it says 100%, just making it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, it's getting bigger on my screen. I'm doing
how is this now? Is this bigger, Mika?
Yes, I can see it.
That's a lot bigger.
Smaller,
it's a lot bigger. Yeah, it's a lot bigger on my screen too. So
okay.
Well, just tell me to scroll whenever.
Thanks, Mika. I don't know what happened. It was getting bigger on my screen. It was like zoomed in, super big. But oh well, it's solved now. Okay, half an hour. Here we go. Okay, so I added some of the things that, in case anybody's interested in teacher ed, higher ed, that's why I added some of the things that I did in that role. So if you feel free to look through this. Another thing I wanted to make sure to tell you is that, and this happens every time I come in and speak in Dr. Bonk's class, I give you my email address because I really, really am fine talking with you, sharing ideas, answering questions. If I can be helpful at all, I don't mind. So, and I expect it, like it happens and I'm glad for it. We're all in this together, and this is a great program. So, I thought it'd be helpful to start by how I generated my idea. So I started by, I knew that I was really interested in why, what was happening. I was graduating teachers at that point, and I knew that new teacher attrition was fairly high. So I knew I wanted to look at what was going on with that. So I spent some time, and I thought about this really early, like what am I really interested in here? And the good thing about new teacher attrition is it's like such a big, broad topic. And so I spent the next several months just kind of pulling at threads. And then I'd run into people and I just kind of asked them what they were thinking about related to that. So for example, I had student teachers at that time. So I'd go in the school and I just nudge the teacher, hey, what do you think about new teacher attrition? Why do you think the new teachers aren't staying? Or I'd talk to some of my graduates. What are you thinking about? And what have you heard? And I talked to principals. I talked to some of my former principals who I used to work for. I was on vacation in the summer up north, Michigan, and one of our neighbors up there, we have a little cabin up there, and one of my neighbors, she is also a teacher. And I asked her, and here we were standing in a lake and throwing a Frisbee, and I just asked her. And what was cool about that is that it was really informal, but it gave me a lot of information and a lot of different perspectives. Certainly you could like formalize that process, but for me, it was really enjoyable. And I feel like people were really relaxed because it was just kind of a side conversation. You know, what are you thinking about this? But I brought around a notebook with me, and I just kind of jotted notes. And I kept coming back to new teacher mentoring programs. So I don't know how familiar everybody is with what happens when you are a new teacher, but most states require kind of a program to get you up to speed, hook you up with a mentor teacher. And there's kind of an onboarding program for your first, usually about 3 years of school of teaching. And so I really took a look at that for my project. But in terms of generating ideas, that is a huge recommendation that I have, is pick something that's like, I would like to think about whatever it is and make it really broad, and then go around and just ask people lots of different perspectives, anyone you run into. And I did do that for several months. I just kind of bugged anybody who would listen. And what was cool about that too, is that I could see their response to that question. So for example, if I asked about new teacher attrition and someone, you know, looked at me like confused, like, what, that's not even a problem. That gives me feedback, like nobody's thinking about this. But it also, because I brought it up and people leaned in and they said, you know, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. That's a really big problem. That helped me to recognize, you know, other people are thinking about this too. It gave me validation. The next section here for forms and checklists, this is all stuff that was super helpful to me. And I'll tell you what, because I treasured these items so much, I still have them in a little bin under my bed, and I probably will never get rid of them because it was such an important part of my process. I don't know why. I cannot get, I purged my whole office, and I'm like, oh, I can just get rid of this. No, I can't. I'll keep it forever. So I did check these links, and they still work. They still worked for me. But what was helpful for me was to print out the degree checklist, because it really keeps you, it helps you know what to do and when. And at least when I went through it, it gave you links to these various items. So that just helped me kind of plan it out. And so just from like a project planning perspective, I went into my calendar, and I like to turn things in like 2 weeks in advance. So I planned to have everything done within that timeline. Well, and what I'm going to show you later when I talk about my study is going to feel like it went by really fast, and that's because it kind of needed to. So, and that's because I was afraid my program was going to end and I was going to get the big axe, you know, and they were helping me pay for it. So, you know, I said, let's get this done. But, so I definitely recommend going to that link and pulling anything relevant from there, any of those documents, have them all ready to go. The degree checklist was really helpful for me to print. The program of studies, I ended up having to do that a few times, which hit me by surprise. I was like, why do I have to do this more than once? So I'm just telling you, like, I just don't want you to be surprised by that. You might have to do it a few times, and that's okay. The advisory committee, you want to select people who you know are interested and invested in your topic, and you want to get to them early. Now, I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So, and also make sure that your transfer credits are in order. These are all things like you just don't really think about when it comes to the end, but it was really helpful for me to do that. Like I had some credit, I had one class that I had to revalidate. So just something to keep in mind.
When was your first class in the program? What year?
2014.
And then when did you graduate?
2019. Yeah. So about 5 years, but I didn't even know like revalidation was a thing. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And you're so trying to keep all these balls in the air at the same time. That's why I'm like, I need to tell people this.
Well,
so
that
they
might have
don't
been
freak out.
a course taken at a different university than, we have a 7-year thing. So if it was at IU, it would have been 7, you would have been okay, but it probably was taken before you started at IU,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I took
that's
it for
why.
my first master's degree.
Right.
So
And
yeah, so I had to
transferred it in.
revalidate.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a whole thing. For quals, and if you want, I do have permission to share what my quals questions were with you.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, just email me and I'll send you my quals questions and some more information about that. And I
Okay.
can certainly loop back around later on and talk about it if we have some extra time.
Yeah,
But you
and
want to
they've
keep
got examples in Canvas, and we might have
Awesome.
some in Dropbox. So they've got some, and I've got more, and you've got some, so they could write to you. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to share that with you. I've gotten permission to do that too. But keep your article critiques handy. Stay calm and bring more than you think you will need. So what I did, I love multiple monitors. If I could just have monitors all over my office, I would be so happy about it. But I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm used to working off of multiple monitors, and I'm going to be put in this office.
Oh.
And I'm going to have one, I'm just going to have my laptop. So I just
Well,
brought 2 laptops.
Yeah, it's changed. It's all online now. No one comes to IU.
Oh, I'm kind of sad for you. That was a whole part of the process.
Yeah.
But
You
I'm
can
also
have
glad
multiple
for you
monitors
because-
now. Yeah.
Yeah, now you can have all the monitors. So never mind. You don't have to bring, just you'll have all your stuff there. I can skip that point.
Yeah.
I'm glad for you because you don't have to travel, but it was like such a part of the process. Don't forget your nomination to candidacy form. Again, with your research committee, you know, you pick 3 people. And at that time, when I went through, you had to have one person who was outside of IST. Luckily, Dr. Bunk serves, he's like learning design, and so I was able to have him on there. But one of my research committee went on sabbatical suddenly, so I had to replace that person last minute. And I share that with you because I mean, I did all the freaking out enough for all of us. So don't let any of this like freak you out too. I don't want that for you.
So there's another change, Angie.
Oh boy.
You no longer have to have a minor. You don't have to minor, and you don't need a minor member. Everyone could be an IST member.
Okay, then never mind. It's gonna go great.
We fixed all of Angie's problems. I think Dr. Rush heard your
'Cause I
problems,
freaked
and he
out
said
so
we
much.
need to fix those things. So that's why. That's partly why, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean,
it's probably
you're in
'cause I
the
staffed
initial
out.
cohort. You know, you're in one of the first cohorts. So, you know, the program's only been around maybe a decade. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in, I think, the 2nd year.
Yeah.
Or maybe 3rd
Maybe
year.
3rd year. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty great. And I know we just talked about the IRB office. They really are super helpful. For some reason, the IRB process just kind of seemed complicated to me at the time. But I reached out to the IRB office, and I think it was Adam Mills then too. He was awesome. He was very prompt. So they're great. The dissertation proposal meeting, your research committee will be there. You do need to prepare a presentation, but they may not want to see it. Here's why it's helpful. It organizes you. So prepare that presentation, and I can share all of my stuff. Like if you want to see what my presentation looked like or any of that stuff, like just happy to do that for you. And then your chair submits the form. One thing that I did that was really helpful along the way is I worked a lot out of Google Docs, out of my Google Drive. And when I would meet with my chair, I just kept like a running log of my questions as I had them. And then during our meetings, he would go through, and Dr. Brush was my chair. And then we would go through and answer those questions. So that was really helpful for me because I could just, as I had those questions, just put them down. And then that document was shared with him. So sometimes he'd poke in and answer some questions. So it was just really helpful for an organizing perspective. You do have to apply to graduate. So make sure you watch due dates for when you choose to graduate. I was the last person. I graduated all by myself. Dr. Brush stayed, he was going to go on a trip and he stayed to hood me. And then, and I was the last IST for a little while because of the pandemic. So that was wild. But it was just me all by myself. Me and Dr. Brush. And then, because I graduated in the December one. So everybody was gone for holidays. All right. So tools I used for the study. I had heard from somebody, my study was qualitative. And so I had a lot of interviews that I needed to have transcripts for, and then I used coding. So I looked at different kinds of software. You know, I didn't have a ton of money to throw at this, but I looked at Hemi, and it's a little app. I don't know, there probably is something even better now, but I could just have my phone and it caught the transcript, and then where I did my interviews was like across the street from where I worked at the time. And so by the time I got back to my office, I was able to download the transcript. And here's what was really helpful. At that time, like right after I did those interviews, I went through and I scrubbed it. And I did that because all of those audio voice to text apps, they don't catch everything. And especially like my group of people were new teachers. So they're kind of young folks, and their speech really rapid. They spoke so quickly. And, you know, up here in Michigan, we tend to chop the ends of our words off. So I just, that's why I say it's really helpful to, right when you get done with the interview, scrub that transcript, just plan it into your time. And yeah, so I included that there. Someone recommended Scrivener to me. It was pretty cheap. It was just about $40. And I started to work on it, and then I didn't like it. It wasn't perfect for me. It was perfect for her. She did her PhD. It was math based, but it just didn't work for me. But in case it might work for you, I put a little link there. I just used Google Docs. So that was fine for me. The proposal defense, that you do have to prepare another presentation. I just modified my previous one, I think. And then you need to dress professionally, and you need to have paper handy. So can you still do these virtually? I did mine virtually. Is that true?
Which
The proposal defense?
Yes, you can do actually everything virtually now. I do recommend coming for the actual defense face to face, and some people do, but you know, Therese did, Mungwan did because she drove down from, but I think Sunmei might not have. She did from, yeah. So it's about half and half now of the EDD students. Maybe it's even 60-40 where they just do it online. We don't see them. Yeah. I prefer face to COVID also put a kicker in there because
yeah, that's a weird thing.
yeah, a lot of people couldn't come face to face. So a lot of the requirements changed and lightened up due to COVID, but then they added, some of them got added back in after the shots. I mean, it's weird, but yeah. So
okay. I
think it's a good thing to come face to face, Ed. So, you know, and also you're here for the IST conference in April. Apparently we got a new brew pub here in town that I think Angie and her husband liked, one of them, but we got a new one now. So Ed, I'll show you that. And
we'll have to come and check it out.
Down here. Yeah. Tiana probably's been there before. She's in Bloomington. So yeah.
Well, good. So for the proposal defense, just make sure that you have paper handy so you can capture those revisions. And then I did a repeat back, and that was really helpful. Like, here's how I interpreted what you said to me. Am I is this right? Am I thinking in the right direction? And so I definitely recommend having a repeat back. And then what I did is I took all of the suggestions and changes and I put it into like a project plan with a little calendar. So I kind of planned out when I was going to be able to do those things. For the dissertation, so that's a proposal defense. For the dissertation defense, I did that in person, and I do recommend going in person if you can. I know some of us are in different countries and things, and that makes it a little more difficult. But if you can, I recommend going in person. This is a huge deal, and you've done so much hard work to get to this point. To me, it was such a huge moment in my life. Like I'll never forget that. And so if you can make it, I think it's really helpful. I arrived the day before. I slept well. I ate great food. I took pictures before and after, and I really recommend bringing someone. So I ended up bringing my husband. Here's why. I needed somebody to take notes while I was doing all of this, because I wanted to make sure that he caught questions and I caught questions and feedback. And then afterward, we were able to look at our work. And plus he was a big support person for me through the whole thing. So it was pretty awesome to have him there. But bring someone who with you who can do this with you. But I truly enjoy. I was not nervous, not even one bit. I woke up that day and I was like, let's do this. And I put on my nice outfit and my hair was looking so good that day. And my husband put on his suit and we marched up there. Oh my gosh, big day. And, but that's why I recommend going in person. But again, you want to do a repeat back so that you are sure that you're capturing what kinds of, revisions or things that you need to do. I brought an extra copy of my dissertation and I took notes right in it. So I printed out another copy of it, just to make sure I had something to write in, and that was helpful for me. Oh, yeah. And another helpful reason for the repeat back is as you're repeating something back, it can draw out some more feedback from your committee. Like, oh yeah, you know what? When somebody was saying that, here's what I was thinking. And I didn't get a chance to say that. So that was really helpful. Overall, I want to suggest that it's really important to take care of your physical health during this whole thing. This is like a year-long process, but you need to come out on the other end whole. So take care of your physical and mental health. Take breaks when you need it, exercise, sleep well, all of this stuff. I put some more, if you scroll down, I have some more just kind of overall tips and things like that. About choosing a topic and things like that. I do want to give about 6 minutes. Dr. Bonk asked me to kind of talk about what comes next. And so I know you've gotten a lot of helpful tips on how to move through this process, but you might be thinking about what comes next. I was in a position where less than a year after I finished, they did cancel my program and I had to be on the hunt for a job. And so I kind of approached it in an interesting way. And this really worked for me. So if you go down to what comes next, looking for a job, I don't know who's looking for a job, but I do know that this was really helpful for me. I went to Indeed and I started searching kind of keywords, what I liked most about my job. So, if you're ever in this document again, you could see all of the different things that I did in teacher education, but I looked for what my favorite parts were. I mean, besides graduating teachers, which is just awesome. It's such an honor. And actually Baker is restarting their program again. So go figure. But I looked for, I used Can you believe that?
Yes, I
They asked me
can.
Yeah, I know. I thought, oh my gosh, you guys, all the heartache. I cried so much about that. But they did, and they asked me to come back, but I'm in this different role, and I like this role. But yeah, so search keywords, and then include your new credentials, and look at what some of the names of some jobs that you can have, or different companies. And by going kind of down that rabbit hole, you can find all sorts of things that you may not even know are out there, but that are an option. You can also connect with your trusted professors to help you know. Dr. Bonk knows off in the top of his mind, he knows what everybody does. He knows all the jobs that people have. And that can be really helpful, because you can say, okay, I'm going to look for a job. What are some things that people do with this degree? And he'll tell you, the people in the military sector, and education, and business, and healthcare. He can help you know all that stuff, but so can your other professors too. So remember, they're a really helpful resource for you. I also think it's really helpful to take a moment to reflect on how completely awesome and amazing that you are. Like, what you've done, the percentage of people with a PhD is incredibly low. 1%?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Yeah.
So you are so amazing that you are in this small group of people, of huge difference makers. And I think it's really important to take time and recognize what you've done. You've inspired your family and friends. It's just awesome. And no one can ever take that away from you. You will always be Dr. So-and-so, which always surprises me when people say that. Like when they say Dr. Lakeman, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me.
We just had Dr. Soul in here.
I know, it's huge. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
I also think that you should put your diploma on the wall. Here's mine. Mine's up here, right there. And I look at it every time I come into my office. And I think that you should too. Get yourself the most beautiful frame and put it up and just look at it. And here's something weird that for some reason worked. I found this coffee mug, and it was just a regular coffee mug, and it said like Miss, Ms., Mrs., Doctor. And in my head, I said, I am not going to drink out of this coffee cup until I'm all the way done. And I put it somewhere, and I'd walk by it, and I'm like, someday, coffee cup, you and I. And I don't know what happened, but it just became like such a representation for me. Like it just encouraged me. And I did end up, and now I drink from it all the time, but doing things like that. But keep setting new goals. And I just think that it's really important to stop and recognize the huge amount of work that you've done. Your professors. I tell everybody who can listen that this is the best program out there. I actually just said it last week. Someone was asking about PhD programs or Ed.D programs, and I just said there's no one better. So you're in the right place, and you're doing awesome things. And I ended right on time. I don't have to end if you have more questions, but I wanted to respect your time. I know you've been here a while, and you've heard from a lot of us.
Yeah, we've been here 2.5 hours, but I think we still want to field questions. I want to make 2 quick comments. One is you had a word practice down there on one of the, and also dress nicely. For me, those 2 points are critical. I think one defends a dissertation, they should dress nicely.
Yes.
I'm not forcing you to buy a new suit or buy a new tie or buy a new dress or whatever. But, I think being professional in this field, it starts with day one when you dissertate, and you should look representative of someone who's going to go out in a conference keynote somewhere. And, I'm biased that way. I think that should be nice, and that holds for the faculty too. The second is practice. And I'll talk more about practice in the coming weeks, and how to practice, and how to defend, and how to communicate with your advisor or your committee and all that. I'll be going through a lot of tips. but practice always helps. And I'll repeat this point 3 times. I practice the day before every keynote and the morning of, and I'm awful. I'm always awful compared to what the actual delivery is. It's always better because I have practiced. And so don't take the whole, any part of the communication cycle lightly, because you never know what kind of questions will come up. Something might be tense during it, but if you're practiced, you'll overcome a lot of the possibilities for misunderstandings, for buy-in. Even you practice and you'll have faculty buying in rather than, buying out. I mean, so even if they don't agree with us, a lot of the findings and whatnot, but if you practice, you look smooth and you look, like you know what you're talking about without having to look back at your notes repeatedly, without having to stare at the screen. If you are friendly with the audience and you're conversing with people, great dissertation is a conversation. It's not an iteration of what you found. It's a conversation about the topic and the ideas. It's an idea generating event. It's an idea evaluating event. It's a conversation about possibilities for the future and all that. But it can't be that if you don't know your own data, if you don't know your own literature review, because we don't know it any better than you know it. Even though we've read it, we know it to some degree. So that's very important. The coffee cup, last year I taught this class, students made a coffee cup for me, put all their names on it, and about 2 weeks later, I chipped the top off it, but I'm still using it. I don't have it up here today, but it's got a little gouge on the top of it. It's my favorite coffee cup right now because the students in R795 got me that. So that was great. Also say that Angie's husband, the reason she brought him down, see, because he paid for lunch at BJ's Brew House, and that was great, so.
Yeah, we took Dr. Bonk out. We got to have so much fun. That was great.
Yeah, it's still there. So anyone comes down, we can go there. I got the new pub. It might be called Heartland Brew or something like that. I just saw it day before yesterday on Sunday driving through town. It's brand new. Anyways, I digress. But do practice, do dress nicely. Questions for Angie or comments? What did you find valuable there? Tiana? You're muted, Tiana.
Yeah, I found it all valuable. It was good to see the timeline and the different things that you put out. Sorry, I'm getting ready to board. I'm in the airport. I didn't say anything, but I've been in the airport this whole entire time. I'm getting board the plane finally to come back to Indiana. But I
Where
really
are you?
found all the. I'm in Orlando now. I was on a cruise, so we came through. We spent a couple days in Orlando, my daughter and I. So
you're always traveling. You like traveling, I can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. But no, I found it valuable to see all your feedback and to know to keep all that graduate stuff. That was nice that you revisited that. And that's something that we got to pay attention to. So I appreciate it.
Well, you attended class during a trip. That's worth 50,000 million bonus points. So, thank you for popping in here. It's been great to have you with us. And go ahead. I mean, you can disconnect if you want to now, if you have to. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tiana. Mika or Ed, any comment? And you can, I guess I stopped the sharing here at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I enjoy the tips from all the one, particularly the partnership one. Find a partner to kind of share the journey, because I mean that's been a challenge with some of these programs when you're EDD, particularly, is you don't know who's in what stage of the program. So some of us have aggressive programs where we're trying to do it in 4 years. Other people take 10 years, and sometimes pulling people along encourages them to finish earlier. And sharing ideas like, hey, have you thought about this format? Or here's a great example is great too. And I obviously enjoy the enthusiasm because it's always good to be, associated with people who are happy to get their degree, not just, I'm doing this again. And like I said, for my other degrees that I've done, I've had a wide range of people, and you know who to hang out with and who not to. If you want to be dragged down, or motivated to get something done early or faster and make it the best you possibly can, and that's what I enjoy.
Thank
But
you.
I did have one other question too, that you
Yeah.
put the qualitative, when you have a challenge, when you know, you had accents issues. So for me, if I did my interviews, what my samples have done for qualitative, it's been the international, my coworkers who have, you know, do you translate it? Because like, if you take it from raw data and put it down in there, you're like, I have no idea what that meant. And no way would anyone else understand, because it may be jargon or slogan that only is familiar with in the field that I'm in, or I'm used to hearing what they say, so I automatically translate it to English, a type of English that could be understood. You know, should I do that automatically so that if I put that in my paper, people could stand it, or should I put, hey, by the way, this means this, in case you saw it?
I think it depends on if you're quoting it.
Yeah,
What
it would be
I
a quote. It would be a quote, but it's not understandable easily to anybody who read it, because maybe their jargon may say a lot of filler words in there that kind of destroys the meaning of it.
Sure.
So
I think when you're coding, like when you're coding it, you might want to maintain 2 copies of the transcripts. One that is your scrubbed copy that you can easily code with, and then another with quotes that you like, that has the original, like with the quotes that you want to use. And I know Dr. Bonk, you have a special way to do this, but I just wanted to say, when you go to your coding process, like if you're looking for the frequency of so many so many people said this and that, to quantify that doesn't necessarily need to be exactly what they said, if you know that you're interpreting what they're saying properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the quotes, though, some of the quotes you're like, okay, I know what you meant by it,
well,
but others would not. So maybe I have to have them paraphrase it into a
Yeah.
better quote.
yeah, no, actually, you should go with genuineness and authenticity of the quote to the degree that you can. I just edited a paper on kids in Nepal, and their English is pretty good, but in the last edit before finalizing the paper, my team asked me to look at it one more time, all the quotes, and I actually, they were missing words, or there'd be half a word, and I added, and you put it in parentheses, or you go SIC, sick, for words you added in. So you, we tried smoothing them out in the last pass, in the very last pass, after reading it many times, trying to leave it as authentic as we could, but I couldn't. There were about 10 to 15 changes I made in about 15, 20 different quotes, so about one per quote. Some had several.
Okay.
So it's okay to make changes, but you put that in, you'll see it in APA. Just look at APA and what it tells that in brackets for the words that you inserted in, or sick, you go sick, for the words, or the change you might have to make it past tense and put an ED on that part's in brackets then.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all kind of like this sometimes. I've had several paper. We rarely have the copy editors from the journal come back to us and ask us to refine the quotes and make it better. They will leave it in as is to keep it as authentic and genuine. I don't teach qualitative methods, but it seems like they'll leave it as is. Even with if you leave one as is with grammar mistakes, you have to leave them all as is with grammar mistakes or spelling or whatever.
Yeah.
But the tools to translate are getting better and better. So, even these tools here, there's a translation tool within Zoom, within Kaltura, I should say. And within Zoom, I think they have one.
Zoom
But
has it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're getting better and better. So it's an issue, but it's not as substantive an issue as you would think it would be. So I
Okay.
wouldn't worry about it yet. I would wait almost until you start writing up the data, and then worry about that. Mika, did you have a question?
First, I just want to say thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed everything. You were a breath of fresh air, and I learned a lot. And just looking at the document you shared now, just your experience, where you were coming from, why you pursued the degree, your roles, just everything has been really inspiring. And I've always been motivated to continue with this degree, to go for what I want, but I'm even more motivated now seeing you and hearing that enthusiasm as well. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Mika.
Thank you. Another question. So, when I asked earlier about how do you read articles fast, there were two parts to that, but I think most people answered the first part. The first part was just in general, how do we read articles fast? But in Quals, when you're doing that article critique, any tips on how to get your article done? So you have an article that's 20 to 40 pages.
Right.
Any tips on that, where the bulk of it is the article and just maybe say it has 5 pages of references? How do you get through that? Would you use, I'm not sure you were here for the tips that we were given, like skimming, or Dr.
Yep.
Monk mentioned looking at the references, then title, abstract, and then starting from the bottom and moving up. Would you recommend any of those, or have you tried anything different? Anything you would suggest?
Oh yeah, it's funny, my husband, I actually kind of taught him how to do this, but skimming and scanning for sure. You know, I think that in K-12 for some reason we're like, that's bad, that's naughty. And then all the way through up through college, we're like, oh my gosh, that's naughty. It's not naughty. It's a skill. It's such a skill. And I also spent time using like Control F and looking for keywords. And so that was really helpful. And then, you know, just in terms of scanning through it quickly or skimming it, you know, reading the first sentences, going through there, and certainly the abstract, those are all really good tips. But I use Control F so many times per day, I don't even think. I mean, it's just a really helpful tool. You might have an Apple, and then it might be a different, like if you have a Mac computer, it's probably something different. But I'm on a PC, I use Control F all the time, and it's really kind of helpful. And Google has another reason to use Google Drive is as you're gathering your articles and putting them in your folder, you can, I kind of created as I went, I took my articles and I put them in a table with like the title, and I worked up the citation right then, and then I put kind of keywords in there too. So that was really helpful too, to kind of look through there. And I used a naming convention to add those to the file name. So then when I needed to find articles that spoke about that, I went into that folder and I searched that keyword.
Yeah.
So that's one helpful way.
So on my desktop, I have a file called articles to read, and then so every time I get a new article on virtual reality, or I have them indexed, so right off my desktop, all these topics, all these current things, and so that stuff goes in there. Do any of you, the last question here before we go, have a tool for language translation so that you can take an article and speak to you in English? So if you're jogging for me, I'm jogging the trails, I can listen to the article. I don't have to read it. That'd be a way to really speed up the reading part, is listening to research articles. Are there any tools out there that you can quickly type in the URL of the research article and have you read the article as you walk, hike, bike, run?
I don't know, but I do want to know.
Yeah, I think it definitely exists. There's speech to text tools out there all the time. Screenify, I think, maybe is one. Screencast-O-Matic maybe is another one.
That's a good point, Dr. Monk. I was looking into that about a year and a half ago. I forgot, I downloaded maybe 3 or 4 of them, but I didn't like the voice. They were too robotic for me.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
happy that you
changing.
brought this up. I'll do some more research on that.
Yeah, it's changing. The more sophisticated it's going to be, the more likely it's going to cost some money. I'll just point that out. But this will be this is the thing, language conversations, bots and AI and voice to text to voice to text. These will all be common tools in a decade. We're going through a change, a transformation. Those things, I mean, just talking to your phone about just directions instead of typing and getting Google Maps up and all this stuff takes about 20 steps. You'll be able to just do it seamlessly, and it won't take us about 4 or 5 years from now. It's coming, but I'll look for that. I'm teaching emerging technologies this semester. I'll see if we can find. I think there are lists of the top 10 tools out there for text to speech, and Screenify and Screencast-O-Matic might be 2 of them, but I, might be mistaken. I'm going to call it in. It's been almost 2.5 hours tonight, so I want to thank you all for coming in to week 2, R795, and we'll be at week 3 next week. It'll be me. It'll be Ask Dr. Bonk Anything. I'll be also giving some writing tips. It'll be a shorter section next week, unless I get another guest in here, which I don't think I will, but it might happen. See you next time.